I had recently started working nights as a gas station attendant. The job was pretty straightforward. The pumps were self-service, so all I had to do was stand behind the glass, take the customer's cash, and pass the odd candy bar through the window. And the best part of the job was that things could get really quiet after 2 o'clock in the morning, so I could go to sleep. One night, however, while I was having a nap, something woke me up. I heard laughter that seemed to come from outside the window. So I slowly lifted my head, and that's when I saw it. A face staring back at me. It was a clown's face, with garish makeup and a twisted smile. It seemed to be staring directly at me, its eyes cold and lifeless. I could feel my heart racing, and I tried to control my breathing, afraid that the figure would hear me. Then it laughed again, and I couldn't help but gasp in terror. The figure just stood there, watching me, with a fixed, unblinking gaze. I didn't know what to do. But then, a car pulled into the gas station, and as its lights shone across the clown, he disappeared. I was still shocked, but I was so relieved to see another human. I tried to act calm, but my hands were shaking as I took her credit card. I told her what I'd seen, and she burst out laughing. "Oh, you're just being paranoid." Then she pointed at my pillow on the desk and said, "Maybe it was just a dream." She laughed as she walked away. After she left, I did feel a bit silly. Maybe it was a dream after all, or the remnants of a nightmare. But as the hours went on, and just as I was about to close up for the night, the clown reappeared. This time, its face was pressed against the glass, grinning at me with its dead eyes. I screamed, stumbled back and fell to the floor, but when I got to my feet it was gone. I called the police, but they said there was nothing they could do as wearing a clown mask was not a crime. So I spent the rest of the night in the back of the gas station, too afraid to leave. And even though I never saw the clown again, I could never shake the feeling that it was still out there, waiting for me. I had recently moved into a cozy apartment in what I thought was a quiet neighbourhood. And as a nurse working long hours, I was used to being alone at night. But one particular night, after another exhausting 12-hour shift, I came home, had some food, and promptly fell asleep in front of the TV. It was about 3 in the morning when I woke up. I'd had a bad sleep, and when I looked around the room, I realised that the TV was switched off. I thought that was strange, but soon dropped it from my mind. I switched off the reading lamp so that my eyes didn't adjust to the brightness and stop me from getting back to sleep. Just then, I heard a tap 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 on the living room window, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. I was used to creaks and groans of the new apartment, but the tapping had me stood frozen to the spot. Then the tapping got louder. Tap, tap, tap. So I groped around in the dark and grabbed the nearest knife from the kitchen counter. I slowly walked towards the window and the tap tap tapping. I stood a moment and braced myself as I flung open the curtains. Suddenly the tapping stopped, and there was nothing there, just the shadows of trees in the moonlight. I sighed long and hard, but as I closed the curtains, something caught my eye, and when I looked, to my horror, I saw a face outside the window staring straight at me. It was the face of a man, illuminated by the orange streetlights. But what really terrified me was his wide, emotionless smile. He stood there, his eyes unblinking, unmoving, and staring right through me. I screamed. Then I remembered the knife and held it up to the window. But still, he stood staring and grinning. I quickly closed the curtains and ran and called the police. As soon as I spoke to them, I noticed the man circling my apartment, tapping on every window he passed, never breaking eye contact with me or losing that sinister smile. I was terrified by his presence, and it seemed an age until the police arrived. By the time they did, the man had vanished. The police searched the area but found no trace of him. I was left feeling vulnerable and terrified, knowing that this intruder was still out there. Over the next few days, I learned that I wasn't his only target. Other women in the neighborhood had experienced the same terrifying encounters. We all lived alone, and this man seemed to know exactly when and where to find us. Fear became a constant companion. I now hated working late and coming home to a dark apartment. I found myself unable to sleep without checking and double-checking the locks on my doors and the windows. And my once peaceful nights were now consumed by the worry of his return and the thoughts of that terrible grin. It was in the summer of 2004, and I was travelling to my family farmhouse to look after it for my parents while they were on vacation. It was a welcome break from my poky little room back in college, and I remember feeling grateful for the chance to escape the city and loved the idea of having the whole place to myself. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the empty property. Maybe it was the fact that the dogs weren't there, or maybe it was the lack of talking or laughter that normally filled the house. Whatever it was, it made me feel uneasy. At about 10 o'clock, a storm started to roll in. I got excited by the storm because when I was a kid, I loved to watch the lightning, so I opened up all the curtains in the house and stood at the kitchen window enjoying the show. I remember the rain was pounding against the windows and lightning lit up the sky. That's when I noticed movement outside my window. At first I thought it was just a flash of lightning. I looked out into the courtyard, but there was nothing there. The thunder suddenly got louder, and the rain became more intense. Again I saw a movement, and as I looked closer, I saw a shadowy figure standing outside. Its face was pressed up against the window. Fear ran through me as the lightning lit up the face, revealing its twisted, hideous features. Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the face vanished into the night. I suddenly had a huge mixture of fear and adrenaline, so I took my dad's shotgun from its cabinet. But when I got out into the rain, I could find no trace of the figure, no footprints in the mud, and no breath marks on the window. So that night I slept with the gun next to me. I remember the next day I started to feel paranoid, always feeling like I was being watched. I tried to ignore it and go about my life, but it seemed like the figure was always there, lurking in the shadows. The weeks and months went by, and I soon forgot about my encounter with the ghost. But now, every time there's a storm, I remember the face at the window.